Memphis, Tennessee. It was a Tuesday night, maybe 10:30, and I was driving back from my buddy Marcus's place after watching the game. Nothing special, just a regular night. I knew the route home well enough, or at least I thought I did. I'd taken it a dozen times, but always in daylight, and something about Memphis after dark scrambles the landmarks. The Waffle House you use as a left turn marker looks different when it's the only lit thing on the block. I missed my exit off I-240. Just blew right past it because I was still half thinking about the fourth quarter. I figured I'd catch the next one and loop back, but the next exit dropped me somewhere I didn't recognize. The street names weren't ringing anything. I pulled up the GPS and it started rerouting, but the direction it wanted to send me didn't feel right. Deeper into the grid instead of back toward the highway. I second-guessed it and made my own turn. That was the mistake. Within 2 blocks, something shifted. I can't tell you exactly what it was at first, just a feeling, the way the air in a room changes when something's wrong before you can name it. The storefronts had metal roll gates pulled down and padlocked, even though it was still early enough that most places should have been open. The street lights were sparse, maybe every third one working, and the ones that were on threw this thin, sick yellow glow that barely reached the sidewalk. A mattress sat propped up against a chain-link fence. 2 men stood under an awning sharing something between them, and they both turned to watch my car pass without moving anything else. Just their heads. Slow. I kept driving. I just needed somewhere to flip around. I spotted a gas station up ahead. A BP with half its sign letters burned out, reading just BP with a gap where the middle had gone dark. I pulled into the lot, which was mostly empty except for a beaten-down Cutlass Supreme parked sideways near the air pump, like someone had just abandoned it mid-thought. I started to angle the wheel for a U-turn when the door of the station swung open hard and a man stepped out. He was big, not just tall, wide, the kind of wide that fills a doorframe. He had a blunt tucked behind one ear and a face that wasn't angry exactly, but wasn't relaxed either, just flat, like whatever emotion he used to carry around, he'd set it down somewhere a long time ago. He looked at my car. Then he walked toward it. I was in a lot, so I had room to move, but the Cutlass was behind me on the left. The air pump island was on my right, and this man was now standing directly in front of my hood. He raised one hand. Not a wave, just a gesture. Stop. He walked around to the driver's side, and I watched him in my peripheral the whole way. My phone sitting face up on the passenger seat, unlocked. One tap from a call. He knocked on the glass with one knuckle. I cracked the window 2 inches. That's it. You lost? He said. His voice was lower than I expected, unhurried. Just turning around, I said. He nodded, like that was exactly what he'd figured. Where are you trying to get to? He made a small sound, somewhere between a laugh and a sigh. Man, you're going the wrong direction completely. Ima, you need to be on the other side of the expressway. Okay, I said. Appreciate it. I started to roll the window back up. He didn't move. Hold on, he said. You know how to get back to the expressway from here? I glanced at my GPS. It was still spinning. I'll figure it out. He looked at the phone, then back at me. That thing's going to send you down, Valentine. Don't go down, Valentine. He pulled out his own phone, looked something up for a second, then held the screen up to my window. He typed out a set of directions, turn by turn, handwritten in the Notes app. You go back out, take a left, then another left on Watkins. Stay on that until you see the ramp sign. Don't stop. Don't turn anywhere else. He paused. "You hear me? Don't stop." I looked at the directions. I looked at him. Everything in me that had been wound tight for the last 4 minutes was still wound tight. But I memorized the directions anyway. "Thank you," I said. He stepped back from the car. I started rolling. I watched him in the rear view the whole length of the lot. And he stood there until I made the left, just watching to make sure I went the right way. I followed his directions exactly. Watkins to the ramp. No stops. The highway sign came up in less than 3 minutes, white and clean against the black sky, and I felt the tension drain out of my shoulders so fast it almost hurt. I sat with that for a while on the drive home. The whole thing, the way I'd gripped the wheel, the 2-inch window crack, the unlocked phone sitting there like it was going to save me from anything. The man had walked out of a gas station and given me directions. That was all, and I had treated it like a hostage situation. I don't know what I expected. I know what I feared. Those aren't the same thing. And that gap, that space between what you fear and what's actually in front of you, that's where most of the damage gets done. Not by the person outside the window, by the story you've already written about them before they open their mouth. Not the worst wrong turn I've taken, but it was one that reminded me how fast the mind builds a verdict before the evidence is even in. You never really know what someone's about to do until they do it. And sometimes, what they do is hand you directions and make sure you get home safe. My name is Daniel, and my wife's name is Claire. At 2 in the morning, somewhere on Ub-81 in Virginia, gripping a gas station coffee like it owed her something. I've been in long-haul freight for 11 years. Refrigerated cargo mostly. Pharmaceuticals, temperature-sensitive medical equipment, that kind of thing. I've driven in whiteouts, through flash floods, with a blown tire on a mountain pass in Colorado at midnight. I don't rattle easily. I say that not to sound tough, but because what happened on this particular run rattled me down to the bone. And I want you to understand that going in, we'd picked up a load out of a pharmaceutical distribution center in Roanoke. Cold chain, critical delivery, hospital in Hartford, Connecticut by 7 a.m. Claire had a thermos of coffee and a book she'd been trying to finish for 3 months. I had a full tank and clear skies. I remember thinking as we pulled out of the loading dock, this is one of the easy ones. Just past Harrisonburg, the temperature alarm on the trailer unit started flickering. Not a full alarm, just a warning light that blinked twice and went off. I pulled into a truck stop, ran a check on the refrigeration unit, and couldn't find anything wrong. I reset it, logged the stop, and got back on the road. 20 minutes lost. Not the end of the world. Claire had fallen asleep by then, book face down on her lap, head against the window. I turned the radio down and drove. That's when I noticed the headlights. There was a car behind me, a sedan, older, sitting maybe 4 car lengths back. Not close enough to be tailgating, not far enough to be comfortable. I noticed it the way you notice anything on an empty highway at night. Not with alarm, just with awareness. I made a lane change to let a semi pass on my left. The car behind me changed lanes too. I moved back right. It moved back right. I drove another 40 minutes, and the car was still there. Same distance, same lane. I nudged Claire. She stirred, looked over at me. What? Don't make it obvious, I said, but check the car behind us. She shifted slowly, glanced in the passenger mirror. Silver Camry, older. Can't see the plates from here. She looked at me. How long? Since before Harrisonburg. She didn't say anything dramatic. She just sat up straight and put the lid back on her thermos. By the time we crossed into West Virginia, the weather had changed. A front was pushing in from the northwest, and the sky ahead of us went from clear to heavy in less than 20 minutes. Rain started soft, then got serious. I had the wipers on full and was watching the road carefully. That's when the Camry moved. It swung left without signaling, accelerated hard, and pulled up alongside us. Not passing, just sitting there, matching my speed at 68 miles an hour in the rain. Then it drifted toward my lane. Not a full merge, just a slow, deliberate pressure, like it was testing how much room I'd give. Claire had her phone up trying to get a plate number, but the rain and the dark made it impossible. "I can't get it," she said quietly. The Camry fell back behind us and stayed there all the way through Martinsburg. I didn't say out loud what I was thinking. The load behind me was worth somewhere north of $200,000. The right people know what a rig like mine is likely to be carrying. And the wrong people know it too. Claire found us a motel near the Maryland line, 20 minutes off the highway. I took exit 12 and watched the mirrors. As we came down the ramp, the Camry took the same exit. I parked the rig under the lot's one working floodlight, as visible as I could make it, reached behind the seat and confirmed my .357 was where I'd left it. The Camry pulled in across the street, engine running, lights off. The motel office smelled like mildew and old carpet. The woman at the desk was pleasant enough, checked us in. I asked if there was security on the lot. She said there was a camera, but the recording equipment had been broken for a few months. She smiled when she said it. The room was what it was. Thin walls, a window facing the parking lot, a deadbolt that engaged with less resistance than it should have. Claire sat on the edge of the bed, fully clothed. I pulled the curtain back an inch and looked at the street. The Camry hadn't moved. I didn't sleep. I sat in the chair by the door with the .357 in my lap and watched the clock on the nightstand tick toward 1 a.m., then toward 2 o'clock. At 2:15, someone tried the door. Not a knock, not a maintenance check, a slow, deliberate turn of the handle, testing the deadbolt's resistance. Then again. Then a third time. Harder. Like patience was starting to run thin. I was on my feet before I was fully aware of standing. Claire was awake, eyes wide. I'm completely still. I pointed at the bathroom. She shook her head. I pointed again. She went. I stood 6 feet from the door, weapon up, and waited. It stopped after 4 minutes. The silence that followed was worse than the sound. I moved to the window and cracked the curtain an inch. A man stood in the lot, maybe 30 feet out, facing the rig. Average height, dark jacket, cap pulled low. He wasn't running checks on the trailer, not yet. He was just standing there looking at it. The way someone looks at something they've already decided belongs to them. The man in the lot turned his head and looked directly at our window. He couldn't have seen me through the curtain, but he looked anyway, like the whole thing had been a conversation and he was waiting for me to respond. Then he walked back to the Camry, got in, and the engine turned over. I pulled Claire out of the bathroom, and we were packed and moving in under 4 minutes. I had the weapon out as we crossed the lot, Claire ahead of me, both of us walking fast without running. I checked the trailer door on the way past. Intact, lock untouched. We were in the cab and rolling before the motel door had finished swinging shut behind us. Neither of us spoke for the first 10 miles. The rain had stopped while we were in that room, and the highway was wet but clear. I watched every set of headlights that appeared behind us for the next hour. None of them stayed. When we crossed into New Jersey, my shoulders dropped maybe half an inch from where they'd been sitting since Harrisonburg. Claire reached over and put her hand on mine on the gear shift. Didn't say anything. I turned my hand over and held hers, and we drove like that until the Hartford exit came up in the pale grey light of early morning. We delivered on time. On temperature. The dock coordinator signed the paperwork without looking up. Nobody standing in that loading bay knew what the man handing them the clipboard had been doing 4 hours earlier. Nobody knew that the woman filling out the log sheet had pressed herself against a bathroom wall in the dark. That's the thing about long haul. Most of what happens out there stays out there. You absorb it, you keep moving, and you deliver the load. And sometimes, when it's quiet in the cab, and Claire is asleep beside me, I can still feel the exact weight of sitting in that chair. Weapon up, hot door in front of me, not knowing which side of it the night was going to come through. I didn't want to be in Detroit. I'm a mid-level supply chain analyst from Columbus, Ohio. I am, by design and preference, a background person. So, when my manager called on a Wednesday afternoon and told me I needed to be in Detroit by Thursday morning, I actually laughed. He was not joking. Fly in the night before, sleep, sit in a conference room for 2 hours, fly home. He said I wouldn't even need to talk much. Just be there. I landed at Detroit Metropolitan just after 9 p.m. Grabbed the cheapest rental left, a white Nissan Sentra smelling of pine air freshener with a crack running the full width of the windshield. Typed the hotel address into my phone and pulled out of the rental lot with one goal: get to the room, order food, and be unconscious by midnight. Simple plan. The kind that only fails if you let it. I let it fail inside 15 minutes. The GPS sent me through turns that got progressively less familiar. Within 20 minutes, I had no meaningful sense of where I was. The street I ended up on had gone quiet in a way that felt deliberate. The businesses were shut. Not just closed for the night, but closed in the way that means they've been closed for years. A man in a heavy coat walked slowly down the center of the sidewalk and looked up at my car and held his eyes on it until I was past him. My GPS said turn left. I turned left. I reversed out and found a street that looked more traveled. I exhaled for what felt like the first time in several minutes and pulled up to the light. Red. That's when I noticed them. On the corner to my left, under the shelter of a closed bus stop, a group of men. 4, maybe 5. But then one looked over at my car. Then another. You stand out not because of anything you've done, but because of everything the situation implies. 2 of them started walking toward the car. Not fast. That was what made it worse than if they'd rushed. They walked like they had all the time in the world. One came up to my window. Young dark hoodie, drawstring pulled, hands in the front pocket. He looked at me through the glass and knocked twice. Casual. I looked straight ahead. Yo, roll it down. I kept my eyes forward, hands at 10 and 2, watching that light with a focus I have never applied to a single spreadsheet in my life. A second one appeared at the passenger window, cupped his hands against the glass, and peered in. Ohio, he said to the others. He's not from here. The other 2 were at the back of the car. I could hear them without seeing them. I caught the words rental and alone, and that was enough. I cracked the window half an inch. I'm just trying to get back to the highway. Which highway? 75, hotel on the north side. He looked at the others. 75, he repeated slowly. Then back to me. You got cash? There it was. Cards work too. Why don't you step out? I'm good. I didn't ask if you were good. Step out. The one at the passenger window tried the handle. It was locked, but the sound of it, that hard mechanical click of someone testing whether they have access to you, I felt it in my back teeth. Light still red, the one at my window said, almost gently, resting one hand on the roof of my car. Might be a long one. Just get out. Something hit the back of the car hard enough to rock it slightly. Hard enough that I felt it through the seat. My whole body went rigid. See, you're scared, he said. That's okay. Scared people make good decisions. Just open the door. I was thinking about my wife, who had texted me 20 minutes ago, asking if I'd landed safe, and I hadn't responded. And that image, her face, when she answered, that was the thing that finally cut through the paralysis. I laid on the horn, one long full-weight blast. The sound was enormous, bouncing off the buildings on both sides, and the men stepped back involuntarily. Not far, but enough. A light came on in the row house across the street. Then another, upstairs. A door opened somewhere, and a voice shouted something. The light turned green. I didn't wait. I pulled forward, not reckless but clear. Turned right at the next block, then left, then right again, just putting distance between me and that corner. My knuckles were white. My jaw ached from clenching. The rear view stayed empty. 6 blocks up, I found a BP station on a lit corner with 2 other cars in the lot. I pulled in, left the engine running, doors locked, and just breathed. Phone at 11%. I typed the hotel directly into Google Maps, got a clean route on major roads, and screenshot it in case the battery died again. 15 minutes later, I was checking in. The front desk clerk smiled and asked how my night was. Fine, I said. Long flight. The meeting the next morning lasted 90 minutes. I answered 3 questions about amortization schedules. Nobody looked at me twice. By early afternoon, I was back at the airport, through security, laptop open, coffee going cold beside me, surrounded by the relentless, ordinary noise of a terminal at midday. Because 8 hours earlier, I had been at a red light with a man's hand on my roof and his friends at my door handles. And now I was here, and nobody around me knew. I flew home that evening, watched the Detroit grid shrink and disappear into clouds somewhere over Lake Erie, charged the phone before leaving the airport, and no matter how wrong the exit looks, stay on the highway. Just stay on the highway and keep moving.